allows for a more sustained and serious debate about real issues. And the winner in that will be the people, because we'll get an opportunity to see it. So I'm looking forward.
Dana.
This is the first time that people will be able to hear a little bit more than one-word answers from Joe Biden, who just shouts yes, no to the press corps when they walk by. The other thing, there's an elephant in the room, and it is the Vice President of the United States. And you can bet that President Trump will bring her up, and that a lot of voters are listening to find out what he's going to say about that. Jesse?
I've retired from making bold predictions, so I will be saying that nothing will change. I will be saying that the polling will stay the same. The race is locked in. People understand their economic situation. Not much Joe Biden can say that's going to change how people feel about this country right now.
That sounds like a prediction.
It's not bold, though.
Brett.
Well, I think there's a lot of pressure on the moderators and on CNN. I mean, they've landed this debate. They're clearly happy to have it. They've been struggling with audience ratings for years now. But now they've ended up in a situation where it's going to be everywhere. Everybody will have it. And I think the stakes are very high for CNN. And if they were to finish third tonight, as they've among the cable channels, the way they have on so many other occasions, it would be.
What's up, everybody? What's up? Again, welcome to What You Talking About, Willis Podcast. I put it on mute for a little while till they get started. So, thank y'all for being here. For those that's been here from the beginning, I appreciate y'all big time, man. But let's just see what this is. Debate is going to be all about. My predictions, if y'all wanted to know. I think it's just Trump just got to speak normal, right? We've all listened to Biden speak, and the dude can't even make a sentence. These men can't even read cue cards. So honestly, I got to be honest with you. I don't know why they even putting this man up right now. I really don't. I don't know why they have this man going up against Trump right now. I just feel like there's some kind of dirty scheme behind this. I really do. I just feel like there's some kind of plan behind the scenes. But really, all Trump got to do is just act normal and answer questions. That's all he has to do. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out how Biden's going to get through this. I think that's what I'm more interested in. Obviously, Trump is going to be my guy, right? I'm always going to cheer for him. But I'm interested to see what the heck Biden does. So let's just all watch this together and see.
It's going to be fascinating to watch this. And, you can just sort of hear their hearts palpitating, probably from both sides of the stage at this point.
Both men will walk out onto the stage. They will face each other for the first time in 4 years. They've talked past each other. Their commercials have run. The campaigns have hurled insults. Now, the two men are on the stage, and the White House is on the line.
We'll see if there is a handshake here, and we'll watch this open right now.
Make his case to the American people.
Here we go.
With just over 4 months until Election Day. Good evening. I'm Dana Bash, anchor of CNN's Inside Politics and
if y'all haven't seen any issues or y'all can't hear me or whatever, let me know.
Of State of the Union. Dana and I will co-moderate this evening. Our job is to facilitate a debate between the two candidates tonight.
Yeah, let's see
Before
how
we
much
introduce
they
them, we want to share
facilitate.
the rules of the debate with the audience at home. Former President Trump will be on the left side of the screen. President Biden will be appearing on the right. A coin toss determines their positions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer a question and 1 minute each for responses and rebuttals.
These rules are interesting.
An additional minute for follow-up, clarification, or response is at the moderator's discretion.
When it's time for a candidate to speak, his microphone will be turned on and his opponent's microphone will be turned
The turning
off.
off the mic
Should a
thing.
candidate interrupt when his microphone is muted, he will
Let's
be
see how many
difficult
times
to
they do it for
understand
Trump.
for viewers
Let's
at
see how many
home.
times they do it for
At the end of the debate, each
old man
candidate will
Biden.
get 2 minutes for closing statements. There is no studio audience tonight. Pre-written notes,
Of course they don't have
thoughts,
no
or
audience
contact
out there.
with
They already know
campaign
what it
staff
is.
are not permitted during the debate. By accepting our invitation to debate, both candidates and their campaigns agreed to accept these rules.
Now, please welcome the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Man, can't even walk. How is he going to get through this? Look at this dude.
Great to be here. Thank you.
And please welcome the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump.
How is he going to get through this, ladies and gentlemen? Look at Trump with the strong walk.
Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here.
This is like a
the debate,
football
and
game
let's
to
start
me.
with the
I'm
issue
hyped.
that voters consistently say is their top concern, the economy. President Biden, inflation has slowed, but prices remain high. Since you took office, the price of essentials has increased. For example, a basket of groceries that cost $100 then now costs more than $120. And typical home prices have jumped more than 30%.
Let's see.
What do you say to voters who feel they are worse off under your presidency than they were under President Trump?
We got to take a look at what I was left when I became president, and what Mr. Trump left me.
Already.
We had an economy that was in
Look at
free fall.
Trump.
The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he said was, "It's not that
Why did
serious.
Trump almost
just
just
inject a little
bust out
bleach in
laughing?
your arm. You'll be all right." The economy collapsed. There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible. And so what we had to do is try to put things back together again. And that's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs. We brought out in the position where we have 800,000 new manufacturing jobs. But there's more to be done. There's more to be done. Working class people are still in trouble. I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania.
in a
I
lot
come
of
from
trouble
households
because of you,
where
sir.
the kitchen table, if the things weren't able to be met during the month, it was a problem. Price of eggs, the price of gas, the price
Already,
of
Dan.
housing, the price of a whole
Welcome,
range
Dan.
of
Thanks
things.
for
That's why I'm working so hard
thanks
to
for
make sure
chiming in,
I
baby.
deal with those problems.
That's my dude
and
right
we're going to
there.
make sure that we reduce the price of housing. We're going to make sure we build 2 million new
How you
units.
wanna reduce
We're going
the
to make sure we cap
price of
rents
housing?
so corporate greed can't take over. The combination, what I was left with in corporate greed, is the reason why we're in this problem right now. In addition to that, we're in a situation where if you take a look at all that was done in his administration, he didn't do much at all. By the time he left, things were in chaos.
He didn't do much
Things
at
were
all?
in chaos. And so
Good
we
Trump
put things
thing.
back together. We created, I said, those jobs. We make sure we had a situation where we brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue for many people, to $15 for a insulin shot as opposed to $400. No senior has to pay more than $200 for any drug, all the drugs they can include beginning next year. In a situation and we're going to make that available to
Try
everybody,
not to say much.
to all Americans. So we're working to bring down the
and let
price
y'all
around
listen.
the kitchen table, and that's what we're going to get done.
Thank you. President Trump?
We have the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well. Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us. We got hit with COVID. And when we did, we spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up in a Great Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929. By the time we finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for the military, and no wars, and so many other things. Everything was rocking good. But the thing we never got the credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID mess. He created mandates that was a disaster for our country. But other than that, we had given them back a country where the stock market actually was higher than pre-COVID, and nobody thought that was even possible. The only jobs he created are for illegal immigrants and bounce-back jobs, a bounce-back from the COVID. He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation's killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
Well done, Trump. What an answer.
The greatest economy
well
in the world.
done.
He's the only one who thinks that, I think.
Just
I don't know
very
anybody else who thinks
smooth,
he's
straight to the point. He didn't even take too many
the fact of the matter
jabs.
is that we find ourselves in a situation where his economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He had the largest tax cut in American history, $2 trillion. He raised a deficit larger than any president has in any one term. He's the only president other than Herbert Hoover who's lost more jobs than he had when he began, since Herbert Hoover. The idea that he did something that was significant. And the military, you know, when he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan. He didn't do anything about that. When he was president, we were still finding ourselves in a position where
the fact checkers at on this? Where are the fact checkers at?
The truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have any this decade that done any troops dying anywhere in the world like he did.
President Trump, I want to follow up if I can.
Am I allowed to respond to him?
Well, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. You can do whatever you want with the minute that we give you. I want to follow up. You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that that doesn't drive prices even higher?
It's not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cause countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many others, in all fairness to China. It's going to just force them to pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things. But he made a statement. The only thing he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest regulation cut in history. That's why we had all the jobs. And the jobs went down, and then they bounced back. And he's taking credit for bounce back jobs. You can't do that. He also said he inherited 9% inflation. No, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months.
Imagine if you
and
pulled
then
a
it
Mitch
blew up
McConnell.
under his leadership because they spent money like a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing, and they don't know what they were doing. It was the worst, probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan.
Exactly.
We were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
President Trump, over the last 8 years,
all
under
Trump
both of
gotta
your
do is
administrations,
just
the
a plan
national
right
debt
now, what he's
soared to
doing,
record highs.
easy win.
And according to a new nonpartisan
dub.
analysis, President Trump, your administration approved $8.4 trillion in new debt, while so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt. So, former President Trump, many of the tax cuts that you signed into law are set to expire next year. You want to extend them and go even further, you say.
All right,
with the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and
don't even
record
know
debt,
what
why
day of the
should
week
top
it is.
earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country. But we spurred, that tax spurred. Now, when we cut the taxes, as an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax, and companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country. The country was going like never before, and we were ready to start paying down debt. We were ready to start using the liquid gold right under our feet, the oil and gas right under our feet. We were going to have something that nobody else has had.
Biden.
We got hit with COVID. We did a
But he
lot
won't
to
wanna
fix it.
admit
I
that,
gave him
Dan.
an unbelievable
Trump should have hit him with
situation
that nugget
all
right
of the
there.
therapeutics and all of
Would
the
have been
things that we came up with. We gave
honor
him
the
something
fallen
great.
soldiers.
Remember, more people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it. More people died under his administration than our administration, and we were right in the middle of it, something which a lot of people don't like to talk about. But he had far more people dying in his administration. He did the mandate, which is a disaster, mandating it. The vaccine went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine. And he did a very poor job, just a very poor job. And I will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country.
100%.
They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore. We're like a third world nation between weaponization of his election, trying to go after his political opponent. All of the things he's done, we've become like a third world
to get too
nation,
off the rails, though.
and it's a shame.
So-
The damage he's done to our country, and I'd love to ask him, and will, why he allowed millions of people to come in here from prisons, jails, and mental institutions to come into our country and destroy our country.
President Trump, we will get to immigration later in this block.
See, I don't want
President
Trump
Biden,
jumping all over
I want to
the
give you an
place.
opportunity to
Let's stick
respond
to
to this question.
Stick to the
about
topic,
the
Trump. You're
national
doing
debt.
fine. You're doing
He had
good.
the
Don't
largest
get riled
national
up.
debt of any president in 4
Don't
years.
let him rile you up.
Number two, that $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. I mean, billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24% 25%, either one of those numbers. They'd raise $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do
I'm trying to figure out where that is. Where are the fact checkers at here?
Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do
exactly,
with...
T-Square. He's just saying stuff.
Look, If we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
You see how they cut him off?
He did beat Medicare. He beat
You
it
see
to
that?
death, and he's destroying Medicare because all of these people
They
are
just
coming
saved
in.
Biden.
They're putting them
Did y'all
on
notice
Medicare.
that?
They're putting them on Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy Social Security. These millions and millions of people coming in, they're trying to put them on Social Security. He will wipe out Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he was right in the way he finished that sentence. And it's a shame. What's happened to our country in the last 4 years is not to be believed. Foreign countries, I'm friends with a lot of people. They cannot believe what happened to the United States of America. We're no longer respected. They don't like us. We give them everything they want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid people. What we're doing for other countries, and they do nothing for us. What this man has done is absolutely criminal.
That Biden
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
This is the first presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This morning, the
Roe v.
court
Wade, here we
ruled
go.
on yet
I'ma
another
trigger
abortion case,
some libbies.
temporarily allowing
I'ma trigger y'all
emergency
libbies.
abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion pill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look at this whole question that you're asking,
A little bit of a different
complex, but
stance.
not really complex. 51
really
years
hasn't
ago,
been
you had Roe v. Wade,
hard on
and
abortion.
everybody wanted to get it back to the
Can't say
states.
that I
Everybody,
agree with him
without
on that.
exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives. Everybody wanted it back.
This is
Religious
kind of a gray
leaders.
area for me with
And
him.
what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court
But I do
justices
like the
on the
fact
court,
that he
and they
left
happened
it
to
to the
vote in
states.
favor of
So I can
killing
respect
Roe v.
that.
Wade and moving it back to the states. This is
Some
something
people don't
that
like that.
everybody
They want a
wanted.
harder stance
Now, 10
on
years ago or so,
abortion.
they started talking about how many weeks and how
so
many
it
this,
just
and
depends
getting
on where
into
you're
other
at.
things. But every legal scholar
I don't necessarily
throughout the
agree with
world,
this,
the most
but I
respected,
do agree with
wanted it brought back to
leaving
the
it to the
states. I did that. Now the states are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that was an end result that was a little bit more liberal than you would have thought. Kansas, I would say the same thing. Texas is different. Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now. And right now, the states control it. That's the vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan,
I can
believe
respect
in
that.
the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart. But you have to get elected also, and because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected.
What I can
the problem
appreciate
they have
is
they're radical
getting
because they will
the federal
take the
government
life of a
out of it
child in the 8th month, the
and leaving
9th
it to the
month, and
state.
even after birth. After birth, if you look
He's
at the
definitely
former
changed
governor
his
of Virginia,
stance a lot on
he
this.
was willing to do
But I think
this.
his people
He
in his
said,
corner
we'll put the
have
baby aside, and
told
we'll
him to
determine what we do with
ease
the
up.
baby, meaning we'll kill the baby. What happened is
We're
we
not gonna
brought
agree
it
on
back
everything.
to the states,
It's
and
all
the
good,
country
though.
is now coming together on this issue. It's been a great thing.
Thank you. President Biden?
It's been a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided. Supported Roe.
How does this dude Trump not laugh?
That's this idea that they're all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor, and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states, let each state have a different rule. look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in. They talk about that, but here's the deal:
This
there's a
man
lot
doesn't
of
know what he's
young women
talking
are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters.
This is
it's just ridiculous,
embarrassing.
and they can do nothing about it.
It's
And they
just
try to arrest
embarrassing.
them when they cross
What are we
state lines.
watching
Thank
right
you.
now?
There have been many young women murdered by the same people he allows to come across our border. We
Don't
have
get
a
to the
border
border
that's the
thing
most
yet,
dangerous
Trump.
place
We'll get to
anywhere
the
in the world.
border.
Considered the most
Don't jump
dangerous
the gun
place
just
anywhere
yet.
in the world.
I know
And he
you're gonna
opened it
hit
up,
him hard
and
on
these
that.
killers are coming into our country, and they are raping and killing women. And it's a terrible thing. As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting. In many cases,
Exactly,
it's
C-squared.
frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody
Literally, the border
wanted,
is the cause of all
including
this.
the founders, if they
All
knew
this.
about this issue, which frankly they didn't. But they would have. Everybody wanted brought back. Ronald Reagan wanted it brought back. He wasn't able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents had tried to get it back. I was the one to do it. And again, this gives it the vote of the people, and that's
Exactly.
where they wanted it. Every
that's
legal
what I
scholar wanted
respect.
it that way.
Staying on the topic of abortion, President Biden, 7 states, I'll let you do that. This is the same
Look at
topic.
this dude's
7
face.
states have
Look
no
at Biden's
legal
face right
restrictions
now.
on how far into a pregnancy a
at
woman
dude's
can obtain
face.
an abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a
This
woman
is
should be able to
embarrassing.
terminate a pregnancy?
I
This is what
support
we all
Roe
respect.
v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters. The first time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor. Between
Why
the
they put this
woman and
dude
the
up
state.
here like this?
The idea that the
I
politicians,
don't know why the I think there's an
founders wanted the
ulterior motive
politicians
here.
to be the ones
There's
making
gotta be-
decisions
it's
about
gotta be an
women's health
ulterior motive
is
here.
ridiculous.
This man up
That's
here
the
like
last.
this.
No politician should be
By
making that
himself.
decision. A doctor should be making those decisions. That's how it should be run. That's what you're going to do. And if I'm elected, I'm going to restore Roe v. Wade.
So that means he can take the life of the baby in the 9th month and even after birth, because some states, Democrat run, take it after birth. Again, the former governor of Virginia, put the baby down, then we decide what to do with it. So he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen, Democrat or Republican. Nobody wants it to happen.
That is simply not true. The Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only if a woman's life is in danger, she's going to die. That's the only circumstance.
Well, that's
in which
what
that
Trump
can
just
happen.
said. He
But
said
we
that's
are
his
not for
exception
late-term
for
abortion.
the life
Period.
of the
Period.
mother. He
Period.
just said that.
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. You can do whatever you want, depending on the state. You can do whatever you want. We don't think that's a good thing. We think it's a radical thing. We think the Democrats are the radicals, not the Republicans.
For 51 years, that was the law. 51 years, constitutional
mean it's
scholarship
right.
said it was the right way to go.
because it was law
51
doesn't mean it
years,
was right.
And it was taken away because this guy put very conservative members on the Supreme Court. He takes credit for taking it away. What's he going to do? What's he going to do, in fact, if the MAGA Republicans, he gets elected,
Here we go.
and the MAGA Republicans
MAGA
control the Congress,
Republicans.
and they pass a universal ban on abortion, period, across the board at 6 weeks or 7 or 8 or 10 weeks, something very, very conservative. Is he going to sign that bill? I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue of immigration and border security. President Biden, a record number of migrants
Here we go.
have illegally
Border.
crossed the southern border on your watch.
Let's hear what this man
Overwhelming
has to
border
say about
states and
the
overburdening
disastrous
cities
border.
such as New York and Chicago, and in some
That's why I
cases
told
causing
Trump
real
to hold
safety and
off on the
security
border.
concerns.
It's coming.
Given that, why should voters
I
trust
expect
you
Biden.
to solve
I
this
expect
crisis?
Trump to tear this
Because
dude
we
up.
worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. By the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position.
Here you go.
In addition
Yep,
to
you're
that,
right,
we
Daniel.
find ourselves in a situation where, when he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the
cages.
families were separated.
Y'all remember
That's
Obama was
not
the
the
one
right
that
way to
started
go.
that whole
What
cage
I've done
thing,
since
but we don't
I've
wanna talk
changed the
about
law,
that.
what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where
This man Biden sound like
40%
AOC.
fewer people coming
Cages,
across the border
cages.
illegally. That's better than when he left office. and I'm going to continue to move until we get
He
the
really
total
said it's
ban
better when he left.
on
What's better about the
total
border?
initiative relative to what we can do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country. The border, all he had to do was leave it. All he had to do was leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people that are from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane asylum, terrorists. We have the largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now, all terrorists, all over the world, not just in South America, all over the world. They come from the Middle East, everywhere. All over the world, they're pouring in. And this guy just left it open. And he didn't need legislation because I didn't have legislation. I said, close the border. We had the safest border in history. In that final couple of months of my presidency,
Even had Mexico
we had,
building a wall
according
for
to
us.
Border Patrol, who is great, and by the way, who endorsed me for president, but I won't say that, but they endorsed me for president. Brandon, just speak to him. But look, we had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything like it. And people are dying all over the place, including the people that are coming up in
Thank you,
caravans.
President Trump. President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything crossing the border is one who came along and killed three, and his administration, killed an Al-Qaeda person come in and his administration, killed three American soldiers, killed three American soldiers. That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorist ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these people. That's simply not true. There's no data to support what he said. Once again, he's exaggerating, he's lying.
President Trump, staying on the topic of immigration, you've said that you're going to carry out, quote, the largest domestic deportation operation in American history, unquote. Does that mean that you will deport every undocumented immigrant in America, incling those who have jobs, including those whose spouses are citizens, and including those who have lived here for decades? And if so, how will you do it?
Just 1 second. He said we killed three people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, the two greatest terrorists, biggest terrorists anywhere in the world. And it had a huge impact on everything, not just border, on everything. He's the one that killed people with the bad water, including hundreds of thousands of people dying and also killing our citizens when they come in. We are living right now in a rat's nest. They're killing our people in New York, in California, in every state in the union because we don't have borders anymore. Every state is now a border.
Bird 'em up,
and
Trump.
because of his ridiculous, insane, and very stupid policies, people are coming in and they're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen. We call it migrant crime. I call it Biden migrant crime. They're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen before. And you're reading it like these three incredible young girls over the last few days. One of them, I just spoke to the mother, and they just had the funeral for this girl, 12 years old. This is horrible what's taken place. What's taken place in our country.
And look
we're
at this dude
literally
Biden's face.
an uncivilized country now. He doesn't want it to be. He just doesn't know. He opened the borders. Nobody's ever seen anything like. And we have to get a lot of these people out, and we have to get them out fast because they're going to destroy our country. Just take a look at where they're living. They're living in luxury hotels in New York City and other places. Our veterans are on the street. They're dying because he doesn't care about our veterans. He doesn't care. He doesn't like the military at all.
Illegal immigrants.
And he doesn't care about our veterans. Nobody been worse. I had the highest approval rating for veterans taking care of the VA. He has the worst. He's gotten rid of all the things that I approved. Choice that I got through Congress, all of the different things I approved, they abandoned. We had by far the highest, and now it's down in less than half because he's done all these great things that we did. And I think he did it just because I approved it, which is crazy. But he has killed so many people at our border by allowing all of these people to come in. And it's a very sad day in America.
President Biden, you have the mic.
Every single thing he said is a lie. Every single one. For example, veterans are a hell of a lot better off since I passed the PACT Act.
A 12-year-old girl was attacked
1 million of
by
them
two
now have
illegal
insurance, and their families
immigrants
have it.
that preyed on
Their
her.
families have it.
And this guy
because
comes
what
up here and
happened-
said, it's
so
a
whether it
lie.
was Agent Orange or burn pits, they're all being covered now.
If you're
And
voting
he
for this
opposed-
dude, man, you got some
opposed
serious
that.
problems.
We're also in a situation where we have great respect for veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq. lived in one next to one of those burn pits, came back with stage 4 glioblastoma. I was recently in France for D-Day, and I spoke all about those heroes that died. I went to the World War II cemetery, World War I cemetery. He refused to go there.
Trump
He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker. You're
What's
the
wrong
loser.
with this? Getting unhinged.
President Trump?
First of all, that was a made-up quote, suckers and losers. They made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like many of these magazines. He made that up. He put it in commercials. We've notified him. We had 19 people that said I didn't say it. And think of this. Who would say I'm at a cemetery or I'm talking about our veterans?
It's crazy.
Nobody's taken better care. I'm so glad this came up, and he brought it up. There's nobody that's taken better care of our soldiers than I have. To think that I would, in front of generals and others, say suckers and losers. We have 19 people that said it was never said by me. It was made up by him, just like Russia was made up, just like the 51 intelligence agents are made up, just like the new thing with the 16 economists are talking. It's the same thing. 51 intelligence agents said that the laptop was Russia disinformation. It wasn't. That came from his son Hunter.
Y'all still believe in the mainstream media?
He made up
it's
the
all
suckers
lies.
and losers, so he should apologize to me right now.
4-star general standing to your side who was on your staff who said you said it, period. That's number one. And number two, the idea that I have to apologize to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history. American history.
To make
and
it
they now are in their
don't
families.
make it too personal.
The only
Just
sacred
stick to the
obligation
topic.
we have as a country
Don't make it too
is
personal.
to care for our veterans when they come
Stick
home
to the topic.
and their
Let this
families
dude
and
go off
equip them when they go to
unhinged.
war.
You just stick
That's
to the
what
topic.
we're doing. That's what the
Don't fall
VA
for
is
it.
doing now.
Don't fall
They're
for the
doing
bait.
more for veterans than ever before in our history.
All right, thank you so much.
Let's move to the topic of foreign policy. I want to begin with Russia's war against Ukraine, which is now in its third year. Former President Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin says he'll only end this war if Russia keeps the Ukrainian territory it has already claimed and Ukraine abandons its bid to join NATO. Are Putin's terms acceptable to you?
First of all, our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand
Trump,
him.
don't
They think
make
he's
it
the
personal,
worst commander-in-chief, if that's what you call him, that we've ever had. They can't stand him. So
Don't
let's get
fall
that
for
straight.
it. Please don't.
And they
man.
like me more than just about any of them.
Don't make it personal.
And that's based on every
Just stick to
single
the
bit of
topic.
information. As far as Russia
That's how they're
and
gonna try to
Ukraine,
get you.
if we had a real president, the president that knew, that was respected by Putin, he would have never invaded Ukraine. A lot of people are dead right now, much more than people know. You know, they talk about numbers. You can double those numbers, maybe triple those numbers. He did nothing to stop it. In fact, I think he encouraged Russia from going in. I'll tell you what happened. He was so bad with Afghanistan. It was such a horrible embarrassment, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, that when Putin watched that and he saw the incompetence, that he should have fired those generals, like I fired the one that you mentioned, and so he's got no love lost, but he should have fired those generals. No general got fired for the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars of equipment behind. We lost 13 beautiful soldiers, and 38 soldiers were obliterated. And by the way, we left people behind too. We left American citizens behind.
The 13
when Putin
fallen.
saw that, he said,
good job on Trump
I think we're
mentioning
going to go
that.
in and maybe take this was his dream. I talked to him about it, his dream. The difference is he never would have invaded Ukraine, never. Just like Israel would have never been invaded in a million years by Hamas. You know why? Because Iran was broke with me. I wouldn't let anybody do business with them. They ran out of money. They were broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for anything, no money for terror. That's why you had no terror at all during my administration. This place, the whole world is blowing up under him.
President Biden?
I've never heard so much malarkey in my whole life.
This man Biden don't know what to say.
We're in a situation where, let's take the
Man
last
just
point
used the
first.
word malarkey.
Iran attacked American troops, caused brain damage for a number of these troops, and he did nothing about it. Recently, not when he was president. They attacked. He said they're just having headaches. That's all it is. He didn't do a thing when the attack took place, number one. Number two, we got over 100,000 Americans and others out of
Biden just read
Afghanistan during
You're
that
just
era.
reading.
Number
You're
three,
not even
we
talking.
found ourselves in a situation
Look,
where
he's reading.
if you take a look at what Trump did in Ukraine,
This is
this
all
guy
reading
told
off a
Ukraine, he
card.
told Trump, do whatever you want and do whatever you want. And that's exactly what Trump did to Putin, encourage him, do whatever you want. And he went in. And listen to what he said when he went in. He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to reestablish, Kyiv. And he, in fact, didn't do it at all. He wasn't able to get it done. And they've lost thousands and thousands of troops, 500,000 troops.
President Trump,
I
as
never
come back
said
to you
that.
for 1 minute, I just want to go back to my original question, which is, are Putin's
So,
terms acceptable to you?
Biden didn't
Keeping the
even
territory in
answer the
Ukraine.
question.
No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a war that never should have started. If we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever. And I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying the money that we're spending on this war, and we shouldn't be spending, it should have never happened.
Exactly.
I will have that war settled between Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take office on January 20th. I'll have that war settled. People being killed so needlessly, so stupidly, and I will get it settled, and I'll get it settled fast before I take office.
President Biden, you have a minute.
The fact is that Putin is a war criminal. He's killed thousands and thousands of people. And he has made one thing clear. He wants to reestablish what was part of the Soviet Empire, not just a piece. He wants all of Ukraine. That's what he wants. And then
I
do you
just
think he'll
don't
stop there?
understand
Do you think he'll stop
the
when
overwhelming money
if he takes Ukraine? What do you think happens to
Ukraine,
Poland? What
while
do
we
you think
keep
of
giving money
Belarus?
to
What do you think
Ukraine.
happens to those
Meanwhile,
NATO
American
countries?
citizens are
And so if you want a war,
Trump would have
you ought
said
to
that would have
find
been
out what he's going to do,
perfect
because if in fact he
for this
does what he
segment.
says and
Bringing
walks
up the
away,
American people
by
and
the
how you're
way,
taking money away
all
from
that
us
money we
to
give
fund this
Ukraine,
war
the
that never
weapons
should
we
have
make here in the
happened,
United
like he
States, we give
said.
them the weapons, not the money at this point. And our NATO allies have produced as much funding for Ukraine as we have. That's why we're strong.
Thank you. Moving on to the Middle East. In October, Hamas attacked Israel, killing more than 1,000 people and taking hundreds of hostages. Among
All right,
those
but
held
trigger
and
some
thought
more,
to still
trigger
be
some more
alive
people
are
here.
5
Let's see what the
Americans.
answer is.
Israel's response has killed thousands of Palestinians and created a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. President Biden, you've put forward a
There's a little low-key
proposal
attack
to
on
resolve
Israel,
this
by the way,
conflict.
on that
But so
question.
far, Hamas has not released the remaining hostages, and Israel is continuing its military offensive in Gaza. So what additional leverage will you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
Number one, everyone from the United Nations Security Council,
Lord of
straight
mercy.
through to the G7,
This dude,
to the
get him off
Israelis,
the
and
stage.
Netanyahu himself have
Get
endorsed
him
the
off
plan
the
I put forward.
stage.
Endorsed the plan I put forward, which has 3 stages to it. The first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a
They're not
ceasefire
gonna
with
do a
additional
ceasefire.
conditions. The third phase is the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas. Number one, they're the only ones standing out. We're still pushing hard to get them to accept. In the meantime, what's happened? In Israel, we're finding that the only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need them. And by the way, I'm the guy that organized the world against Iran when they had a full-blown intercontinental ballistic missile attack on Israel. No one was
This
hurt.
man's battery is running out.
One Israeli
Somebody
was
need to go
accidentally killed.
have a
and
commercial break
it stopped.
and
We
rewind
saved
this
Israel.
dude's
We are
batteries.
the biggest
Give him a set of new
producer
batteries.
of support for
He's
Israel of
losing
anyone
it.
in the world. And so they're 2 different things. Hamas cannot be allowed to be continued. We continue to send our experts and our intelligence people as to how they can get Hamas like we did bin Laden. You don't have to do it. And by the way, they've been greatly weakened, Hamas, greatly weakened, and they should be. They should be eliminated. But you've got to be careful for using certain weapons among population centers.
It is wearing off, Dan.
Just going back to Ukraine for 1 second. We have an ocean separating us. The European nations together have spent $100 billion or maybe more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General of NATO said Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen. They wouldn't have any, they were going out of business. We were spending almost 100% of the money was paid by us. He didn't do that. He's getting all, you got to ask these people to put up the money. We're over $100 billion more spent, and it has a bigger impact on them because of location, because we have an ocean in between. You got to ask them. As far as Israel and Hamas, Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one that wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it.
that.
He's become like a Palestinian.
I agree with
But
that.
they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian.
A lot
He's
of
a weak
people don't
one.
agree with that, but I've been saying
President
it. Y'all been
Biden, you have a
following the
minute?
channel, like
I've never heard
subscribe
so
and
much
share.
foolishness. This is a guy
Hey,
who wants to get out of
I'm
NATO.
gonna
You're going to
support
stay in
Israel.
NATO? He's going to pull out of NATO. The idea that we have, our strength lies in our alliances as well. It may be a big ocean, but we're ever able to avoid a war in Europe, a major war in Europe? What happens if, in fact, you have Putin continue to go into NATO? We have an Article 5 agreement. Attack on one is attack on all. You want to start the nuclear war he keeps talking about, go ahead. Let Putin go in and control Ukraine and then move on to Poland and other places. You see what happens then. He has no idea what the hell he's talking about. And by the way, I got
using
50
foul
other nations
language out
around the
here.
world to support Ukraine,
Come on.
including
That's
Japan
not very
and South
presidential-like,
Korea, because they
right?
understand
Y'all
that
got
this,
mad at
this,
Trump's
this
mean
kind of
tweets.
dislocation has a serious
Not very
threat to the whole
presidential-like.
world peace. No major war in Europe has ever been able to be contained just to Europe.
President Trump, just to follow up, would you support the creation of an independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see, but before we do that, the problem we have is that we spend all the money. So
That's
they
the
kill us
problem.
on trade. I made great trade deals with the European nations because if you add them up, they're about the same size economically. Their economy is about the same size as the United States. And they were no cars, no, they don't want anything that we have, but we're supposed to take their cars, their food, their everything, their agriculture. I changed that. But the big thing I changed is they don't want to pay. And the only reason that he can play games with NATO is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said, and he's right about this, I said, no, I'm not going to support NATO if you don't pay. They asked me that question, would you guard us against Russia? At a very secret meeting of the 28 states at that time, nations at that time. And I said, no, if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in the next day and the next
The way that
month.
Trump says billions.
But now we're in the same position. We're paying everybody's
Thank you.
bills.
Let's turn to the issue of democracy.
But he's right, though.
Former
We are
President
spending too
Trump,
much money.
I want to ask you about January 6, 2021.
January
After you
6th, here
rallied
we
your
go.
supporters that
I
day,
knew this was gonna
some of
come
them
up.
stormed the Capitol to
I knew
stop
this
the
was gonna come up.
constitutionally mandated counting of electoral votes. As
C-squared,
president, you
I
swore
don't
an
know why they
oath
got
to,
Biden
quote,
up
preserve,
here at
protect,
all.
and
I really
defend,
don't.
unquote, the Constitution.
Shouldn't be up here in
What
the
do you
first
say to
place.
voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6 and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through,
Mention
very
Nancy
few.
Pelosi
On
blocking-
January 6th, we were energy independent. On January
Blocking
6th, we
aid.
had the lowest
Mention that.
taxes ever. We had the lowest regulations ever. On January 6th, we were respected all over the world. All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people. What happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership is horrible,
We are a laughing
including
stock around the world
weaponization,
right
which I'm
now.
sure at some point you'll be talking about, where he goes after his political opponent because he can't beat him fair and square.
You have 80 seconds left. My question was, what do you say to those voters who believe that you violated your constitutional oath through your actions and inaction on January 6,
Nobody-
2021,
no
and
oath
worry that you'll do it
violated.
again?
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically.
Exactly.
And Nancy Pelosi, if you just
There it
watched
is.
the news from 2 days ago.
There it is.
On tape to her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, they say.
Here
But
it
she's
is.
saying, oh, no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this. Because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National
see,
Guard.
good job,
and
Trump.
she turned them down. And the
Way
mayor
to bring it up.
in writing, by the way, the mayor, in writing, turned it down, the mayor of D.C. They turned it down. I offered 10,000 because
That's all they
I
have,
could
T-Squared.
see
This
I had
Jan 6 stuff, we all know
virtually
it's a
nothing to
lie.
do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening.
all
Everybody
know
was
it's
saying
a
they're going
lie.
to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some National Guard or whatever.
What Nancy said.
And I offered it to her, and she now admits that she turned it down. And it was the same day she was.
The
I don't
left
know,
don't
she can't
even
be
know
very
how to
happy with
shut
her
up.
daughter because it made her into a
It's
liar.
just-
She said, "I take full
They make
responsibility
themselves look
for
stupid.
January 6th."
She on film saying,
President
"Oh, it's
Biden?
my responsibility. I didn't say
Look,
it."
he encouraged those folks to go up on Capitol
Oh my
Hill,
God, here
number
go
one.
Biden, man.
I sat in the dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours, 3 hours watching, begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, to call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America.
Where are the
In
fact checkers at?
he
This
says
dude
he'll
is
not
just
forgive them for
100%
what they've
lying.
done. They've been convicted.
100%
He says he
lies.
wants to commute their sentences and say that no. But he went to every single court in the nation. I don't know how many cases, scores of cases, including the Supreme Court, and they said no, this guy is responsible for doing what was done. He did do a damn thing, and these people should be in jail, and they should be the ones that are being held accountable. And he wants to let them all out. And now he says if he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that there could be a bloodbath.
Trump, don't take
you,
it personal,
President Biden.
man.
President
He's
Trump.
trying to bait you in.
What they've done to some people that are so innocent.
Speak the fact.
You ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people. When they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down many other cities, you go to Minnesota, Minneapolis, what they've done there with the fires all over the city.
Yep.
If I didn't bring in the
Summer of
National Guard, that
2020.
city would have been destroyed.
Summer of love,
When you
Black
look at
Lives
all
Matter.
the
They didn't say
they
nothing.
took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard
Yep.
that. They saw them coming and they left immediately. What he said about this whole subject is so off. Peacefully patriotic. One other thing. The Unselect Committee, which is basically two horrible Republicans that are all gone now, out of office, and Democrats, all Democrats, they destroyed and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were right. We were right. And they deleted and destroyed all of the information. They should go to jail for that. If a Republican
Lock
did
them
that,
up.
they'd go to jail.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon. Is the man
Here we
we're
go.
looking at right
I
now.
told y'all.
And the fact of the
I
matter
told
is,
y'all they gonna
he is-
bring that up.
What he's telling you is simply not
I
true.
told y'all they gonna
Fact
bring that
is
up.
that
He's going
there
through
was
his
no
bag.
effort
And
on his
again,
part
that's
to
the
stop
last
what was
bag
going
he
on
has. That's his
up at
last
Capitol Hill. And all those people, every
item
one of
in
those
his
who were
bag.
convicted
Convicted
deserves
felon.
to be
They
convicted.
tried Jan
The
6,
idea that they
they
didn't
tried
kill
Russia.
somebody
They
just when
already
they
tried
broke
all
down
the stuff.
doors,
The
broke
guy
the
convicted
windows,
felon. That's their last.
occupied
That's his
offices,
last resort.
turned
What does he
over
have
desks,
after this?
turn them over statues. The idea that those people are patriots, come on. When I asked him the first two debates we had, the debates we had first time around, I said, will you denounce the Proud Boys? He said, no, I'll tell them to stand by. The idea he's refusing to, will you denounce these guys?
Dude is just
You
lying,
denounce the
man.
people we're talking about now? You denounce the people who attacked that Capitol? What are you going to do?
I'm going to give you a minute, President Trump, for a follow-up question I have.
They won't let Trump
After a jury
answer
convicted
him.
you of 34 felonies last month, you said
Here
if
we go.
reelected, you would, quote,
knew they were gonna
have
bring it
every
up.
right to go after, unquote, your political opponents. You just talked about members of the Select Committee on January 6th going to jail. Your main political opponent is standing on stage with you tonight. Can you clarify exactly what it means about you feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again, because right now it's a failing nation.
Make this
My
country
retribution is
successful
going to be
again.
success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon. At
There
a
you
very
go,
high
Trump.
level. His son is convicted, going to be convicted probably numerous other times. Should have been convicted before, but his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things. But he
Trump
could
is
be a
well
convicted
prepared for
felon
this.
as soon as
I'll
he
give
gets
him
out
that.
of office. Joe could be a convicted
I mean,
felon with
quick
all of the
answers,
things that he's
staying
done.
on topic.
He's done horrible things. All
Punching
of the
him right
death
back.
calls at the border. Telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to want $1 billion or you change the
Quid pro quo.
prosecutor. Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo. That we're not going to
Right
do
on
anything.
cue.
We're not going to give you $1 billion
Y'all better start
unless you
listening
change
to me
your
out here,
prosecutor
man.
having to do with
I'm
the
telling
son.
y'all. Y'all better
This
start
man is a
listening.
criminal. This man, you're lucky. You're lucky. I did nothing wrong. We'd have a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, I'm coming right to you, sir. You want to respond? Go ahead. I'll
Biden
give you a
don't even
minute to
know what's
respond.
going on.
The idea that I did anything wrong relative to what you're talking about is outrageous. It's simply a lie, number one. Number two, the idea that you have a right to seek retribution against any American just because you're president is wrong. It's simply wrong. No president's ever spoken like that before. No president in our history has spoken like that before. Number three,
Dan,
the crimes
the
that you are still
information is
charged
right
with. And
there
think of all
for
the
us to
civil
see,
penalties you have.
and
How many
people still don't
billions of
believe it.
dollars do you owe in civil penalties?
They still don't.
For molesting
If they
a
don't
woman
see
in
it right
public,
now,
for doing a whole range of things.
It's just
of having
purposeful
sex
at
with a
this
porn
point.
star
They don't want to
on the
believe.
night while
don't
your
wanna
wife
be
was
held.
pregnant. I mean, what are you talking about? You have the morals of an alley cat.
Give you a minute, sir.
I
Don't
didn't
fall
have
for
sex
it.
with a porn star, number one. Number two, that was a case that was started and moved. They moved a high-ranking official, a DOJ, into the Manhattan DA's office to start that case. That case is going to be appealed and won. We had a very terrible judge, a horrible judge, Democrat. The prosecutor were all high-ranking Democrats, appointed people, and both the civil and the criminal. He basically went after his political opponent because he thought it was going to damage me. But when the public found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are. But when they found out about these cases, you know what they did? My
Wait,
poll numbers
where's
went up
Biden
way up.
going?
You
He's
know that
wandering
because you're
off.
reporting it.
Somebody
And we
changed
took in more
Biden's
money in
batteries.
the last 2 weeks.
They're wearing
than we've
off.
ever taken in the
Look at
history
him.
of any campaign. I don't think any campaign
Look at this.
has ever taken hundreds of millions
is
of dollars came
embarrassing.
pouring in because the public knows it's a scam.
We all
and
know
it's a
what it
guy
is,
that's
Trump.
after his political opponent because he can't win fair and square.
Thank you,
100%
President Trump. President Biden, you have said, quote, Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans are determined to destroy American democracy. Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump will
Talking
be
about
voting
me.
against
Talking
American
about you.
democracy?
What does he say
The more
about
they
us?
know about what he's done, yes. The more they know about what he's done. And there's a lot more coming. He's got a lot of cases down the road coming around. He's got a whole range of issues he has to face. I don't know what the juries will do, but I do know he has a real problem. And so the fact that, could you ever think you heard any president say that I'm going to seek retribution? Do you ever hear any president say that I thought
He
Hitler
said
had some good
retribution is
ideas?
gonna be
What got
success.
me involved to run the first place after my
That's what he
son
said, it's
died, I
retribution. He
decided
just said it. He
in
said it's
Iraq
gonna be
because of
success.
Iraq. I said I wasn't going to run again until I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas on torches,
Oh, my God.
and singing the same anti-Semitic bile they sang when back in Germany. And the young woman got killed. I spoke to the mother,
talking about?
they asked him. They said, "What do you think of those people? The ones who got killed, the one who tried to stop it, and the ones," he said, "I think they're fine people on
Oh,
both
we going
sides."
back to the Charlotte
What
thing.
American
Oh
president
my God, he
would
never
ever
said
say
any of those people were
Nazis
fine
coming
people.
out of fields
Oh
carrying
my goodness, they
torches,
still
singing
they're
the
riding
same
on
anti-Semitic bile,
20,
carrying swastikas.
16
Were fine people. And this is a guy who
talking
says
points that
Hitler's
they
done
had
some
at
good
first.
things.
This
I'd like
is
to know what they are.
stuff they were bringing
Good
up
things Hitler's
when
done.
Trump
That's
was
what he
first
said.
running.
This guy has no sense.
They don't
of
have
American
anything else.
democracy.
I told you.
President Trump.
I told
Jake,
you.
both of you know that story has been totally wiped out because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration on that. So he just keeps it going. He says he ran because of Charlottesville. He didn't run because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance. He's not equipped to be president. You know it, and I know it. It's ridiculous. We have a debate. We're trying to justify his presidency.
C squared.
His
I told you
presidency,
the last
without question,
in his bag
the worst president, the worst
was-
presidency in the history of our
He's a
country.
convicted
We
felon.
shouldn't be having
They
a
have
debate
nothing else.
about it. There's
They're going
nothing to
back to
debate.
Charlottesville.
He made up the
That's
Charlottesville
already
story,
been
and you'll see
debunked.
it's debunked all over the place.
Exactly.
Every anchor has every reasonable
Everybody's
anchor
debunked
has
this.
debunked it. And just the other day it came
I'm
out.
gonna
where
start
it was
listening to
fully
me. I swear,
debunked.
man.
It's a nonsense story.
I might as
He
well be
knows
up on
that,
the stage.
and he didn't run because of Charlottesville. He used that as an excuse to run.
President Biden.
And debunked. It happened. All you have to do is listen to what was said at the time. And the idea that somehow that's the only
Whitey,
reason
you're
I
looking at the
ran.
wrong
I
camera.
ran because I was worried
Whitey,
a guy
you gotta
like this
look
guy
over
could
here.
get elected.
Come on, turn
If he
around.
thought
There
they
you
were
go.
good people
You're
coming
looking at
out
the
of
wrong camera.
that forest, carrying those woods, carrying those torches, then he didn't deserve to be president. Didn't deserve to be president at all. And the idea that he's talking about all this being fabricated. We saw with our own eyes.
Why are we talking about Charlottesville?
We saw the people breaking through the windows. We saw
Why are we
people
talking
occupying
about this?
his own vice
This is
president.
old.
Look, there's a reason why 40 of his
I remember
44
talking about
top
this back
cabinet officers
2016.
refused to endorse him this time. His vice president hasn't endorsed him
This
this
is
time.
old.
So why? Why? They know him well. They serve with him. Why are they not endorsing him?
Thank you, President Biden. We're going to be right back with more from the
commercial
CNN
break.
presidential debate.
That was a long, long time before. I can't believe they let Biden go this long before commercial break. Thank y'all for being here with me so far. I appreciate it. I appreciate it so much.
Through the
Y'all
honors
for being
program
here.
at the
C
South
Squared,
Academy, I was
Dan, appreciate y'all here chatting with me on the chat. If y'all want to chime in, go ahead, type it on the chat. I'll respond. For those that's new here, go to the channel, like, subscribe, and share. YouTube. What you talking about, Willis, on YouTube? Go ahead, like, subscribe, and share. Let everybody know. Thankful for everybody that's been here. A lot of eyes in here, so I appreciate it. Tell me what you think about what's going on. Tell me how you think Trump is doing, how you think Biden is doing. I want to hear it all. I'm here for it, man. I'm here for it. In my opinion, so far, I think Trump is doing just fine. There's personal shots taken at him, but he's not biting too much. I appreciate it. I appreciate him for him doing that. And you're right, Dan. Time to change Biden's diapers. Nah, Jill's listen, man, what they doing is changing Biden's batteries right now. I'm surprised they let it go this long. But anyways, I think Trump's doing good, staying on topic. He's not getting in his feelings. He don't have to get in his feelings because this dude Biden don't know where he's at. I told y'all. They're resorting back to old tactics. They're running out of stuff to talk about. Once he said convicted felon, and I was waiting for that this whole time. I was waiting for January 6th, and I was waiting for a convicted felon. Those are the two things. These are the two things I was waiting for. And once he said convicted felon, he ran out. He has nothing else to talk about. They have nothing else. They're resorting back to Charlottesville, and we already debunked that. They won't talk about the Palestine protests. They won't talk about that because the left supports that. Right? They support that. They won't talk about anything like that because we know what the truth is. I don't think the debate is ridiculous at all. We wanted this debate. We needed this debate. Yeah, Mayweather's 50-0, C squared. 50-0. It's not looking good for Biden, man. Well, listen, we already knew that coming in here. Like, this is what I expected. It's interesting to see now what topics that are left to talk about and to see if they come up with any new tactics to try to attack Trump. All Trump's doing is giving them facts about when he was president and debunking every little thing that they try to say about him that was alive, and he's proved it. He made a great point about the soldiers, made a great point about Nancy Pelosi withholding aid. That's all he has to do. That's all he has to do. Listen, CNN is 3-1 right now. Right? I'm sad that it's on CNN. I don't want it to be on CNN, but I'm watching it on Fox right now. But it's 3-1, and I think Trump is holding it on.
Debate live from Georgia.
Here we go. Welcome back,
Let's
everybody.
Talk about persistent challenges you both faced in your first terms, and you'd certainly face again in a second term. President Biden, while black unemployment dropped to a record low under your presidency, black families still earned far less than white families. Black mothers are still 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes, and black Americans are imprisoned at 5 times the rate of white Americans. What do you
see
say
what
to
he
black
say.
voters who are disappointed that you haven't made more progress?
They acknowledge they
Shouldn't
made
have
a lot
voted
of
for him.
progress.
That's what I
number
would
one.
say.
The fact of the matter is, there are more small black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number two, the wages of black
Casey, don't get me
unemployment is the
started.
lowest level it's been in a long, long time. Number three, we
Don't wanna
find
talk
we're
about
trying
that.
to providing housing for black Americans and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporations that collude
Oh,
to
man,
keep
this
people out
dude
of
don't
their
know what he's
houses.
talking about.
And in
He
addition
don't
to
know what he's
that, we
talking
find that the impact on
Time to read cards.
the choice that black families have to make relative to child care is incredibly difficult.
What choices
When we
do
did the
black
first
people have to
major
make
piece
for
of
child care?
legislation
I
in the
wanna know.
past, I was able to reduce black child care costs. I cut them in half.
There is
in
none
half.
right now, Steve
We got to
Square.
make sure we provide for
They
child
don't got
care
no
costs.
videos.
We got to make
They don't
sure
have any
because when
videos
they
right now.
provide those child care
They
protections,
might bring up some
you
old stuff, but they don't
increase
have any videos
economic
right now.
growth because more people can be
Palestine
in
took
the
over
job
that.
market. So there's more to be done, considerably more to be done. But we've done a great deal so far, and I'm
What
not
have,
letting
what
up,
have
and
they
know
done
it.
for black folks?
You have
I want to
49
know that.
seconds left.
What have they
What
done?
do you say to black voters who are disappointed with the progress so far?
I say I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example, I provided for the idea that any black family first-time home buyer should get a $10,000 tax credit.
Why?
To be able to buy their first home.
Why? Why
so
do we
they can
need
get
that?
started.
Why do we
I
need
made
a
sure
handout?
that we're in a situation
I
where
hate that
all
so
those
much.
black families and those black individuals
We don't need that.
provided had to take out student loans that were ballooning. That if they were engaged in
this is
nursing,
handouts.
doctor, and,
This is- black people are so
anything
dumb
having to do with
and hopeless.
volunteerism,
We got to give
if they
them
paid
stuff.
their bills for 10 years on their student debt, all the rest is forgiven after 10 years. Millions have benefited from that. And we're going to do a whole lot more for black families.
What is he
Thank you,
going to do?
President Trump.
Give me something.
And he caused the inflation.
Exactly.
He's blaming inflation.
Trump.
And he's right, it's been very bad. He caused the inflation, and it's killing black families and Hispanic families
a
and just about everybody.
response.
It's
That
killing
was-
people. They can't
that was
buy
good.
groceries anymore. They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled. They can't live. They're not living anymore.
I don't-
He caused this inflation.
don't
I
like-
gave him a
They're
country
singling
with
us out
no,
right
essentially
now.
no
They're talking like
inflation. It was
they.
perfect. It was
I'm
so
just
good. All he
fine,
had to do
man.
is leave it
A lot of
alone.
black people are
He
just fine.
destroyed it with his Green New Scam
why they
and all
gotta
the other,
put us on a
all this
pedestal.
money that's being thrown out the window. He caused inflation. As sure as you're sitting there, the fact is that his big kill on the black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking
I
black
told
jobs
y'all.
now.
Man, this
And it
dude
could be
Trump is on
18,
point.
It
I
could
told
be
y'all,
19 and
as
even
soon as
20
that
million
border start
people.
opening,
They're
black
taking
folks,
black jobs.
they're not gonna
and they're
care
taking
about you.
Hispanic jobs.
Listen
and
to
you
him.
haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Thank
Listen
you.
to him.
President Biden.
There
I
was
told
no
y'all.
inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back. 15% unemployment. He decimated the economy, absolutely decimated the economy. That's why there was no inflation at the time. There were no jobs. We provided thousands of millions of jobs for individuals who are in all communities, including minority communities. We made sure that they have health insurance. We have covered, the ACA has increased. I made sure that they're $8,000 per person in a family to get written off for health care. But this guy wants
I
to
don't know
eliminate
what
that.
this
They tried 50 times. He wants to get rid of the ACA again. And they're going to try again if they win. You find ourselves in a position where the idea that we're not doing any, we put more police on the street than any administration
put more
has.
police
He
on the
wants to
street?
cut the cops.
Y'all wanna give
We're
me that
providing
stat?
for
I don't know about that. What more
equity and
police
making sure people have
people on the
a
street?
shot to make it. There's a lot going on, but in inflation, he caused it by his tremendous malfeasance in the way he handled the pandemic.
Thank you. Another persistent challenge is the climate crisis.
Oh, my God,
2023
the
was the
climate- here we go.
hottest year in
We didn't
recorded
skip.
history
Listen,
in
black folks,
communities
that's
across
all they give you
the country are
on black
confronting
folks.
the
They
devastating
didn't even let
effects
Trump
of
talk about
extreme
that
heat,
much.
intensifying wildfires.
That's all they care about
stronger
you is black
hurricanes, and
folks.
rising
Y'all
sea
keep
levels.
voting for these people.
Former
That's
President
the only
Trump,
section
you've
they give you.
vowed to end your opponent's climate
We
initiatives.
didn't move on to
but
climate
will you
change. That's
take
more
any
important.
action
Trump
as
made a good
president
point.
to slow the climate crisis?
Once that
Let me
border
just go
open up,
back to what he
forget
said
all
about
black folks.
the
Don't care
police.
about y'all.
How close the police
These are the
to him.
votes coming in.
Almost every police group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump. Almost every police group. And what he's done to the black population is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. We can't, in the 1990s,
Trump
we
is
can't forget
on
that.
it.
Super predators was his name, and he called it to them for 10, and they've taken great
Trump is
offense at it. And
destroying
now they
this
see it
dude.
happening. But when they see what I did for criminal justice reform and for the historically black colleges and universities,
exactly,
where I funded them and got them all funded, and the opportunity zones with Tim, as you know, Tim Scott was incredible. He did a great job. Great senator from South Carolina.
Yeah, I might as well just go
he
ahead
came
and
to
cut
me
the
with the
debate
idea,
now,
and it was a
man.
great
This dude
idea.
is
It's one of the
cooked.
most
He's
successful
cooked.
economic development acts ever in the country.
He's
Opportunity zones. And the biggest beneficiary are blacks. And that's why we have the best numbers with them in maybe ever. They're saying ever. I read this morning where ever, the best numbers. He's lost much of the black population because he's done a horrible job for black people. He's also done a horrible job for Hispanics. But wait till you see these millions of people pouring into our country, and they're going to take the jobs. And it's already started, and you haven't seen anything yet. It's a disaster.
You've 38 seconds left. President Trump, will you take any action as president to
He
slow
did call
the
us
climate
super
crisis?
predators. Yeah, we
So
remember that.
I want absolutely immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air, and we had it. We had H2O. We had the best numbers ever, and we were using all forms of energy, all forms, everything. And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever. And my top environmental people gave me that statistic just before I walked on the stage, actually.
I don't know where the hell he's been. The idea that anything he said is true. I've passed the most extensive, climate change legislation in history. We find ourselves, and by the way, black colleges. I came up with $15 billion for HBCUs, historic black universities and colleges, because they don't have the kind of contributors that they have to build these laboratories and the like. Any black student is capable in college of doing any white student can do. They just don't have the money. But now they'll be able to get those jobs in high tech.
Oh my God!
We're in a situation where the idea that he is claiming to have done something that had the cleanest water. He hadn't done a damn thing for the environment. He pulled out of the Paris Peace Accord, Climate Accord. I immediately joined it because if we reach 1.5 degrees Celsius at any one point, where there's no way back. The only existential threat to humanity is climate change, and he didn't do a damn thing about it. He wants to undo all that I've done.
I personally don't believe in climate change.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion. And China nothing, and Russia nothing, and India nothing. It was a ripoff of the United States. And I ended it because I didn't want to waste that money because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones. It was costing us money. Nobody else was paying into it. And it was a disaster. But everything that he said just now, I'll give you an example. I heard him say before insulin. I'm the one that got the insulin down for the seniors. I took care of the seniors. What he's doing is destroying all of our medical programs because the migrants coming in, they want everybody. And look, I have the biggest heart on the stage. I guarantee you that. And I want to take care of people. But we're destroying our country. They're taking over our schools, our hospitals, and they're going to be taking over Social Security.
American citizens are
destroying
suffering.
Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
The idea is that we, in fact, we were the only ones of consequence who were not members of the Paris Accord. How can we do anything that we're not able to? The United States can't get it under control. One of the largest polluters in the world, number one. We're making significant progress. By 2035, we will have cut pollution in half. We have made significant progress, and we're continuing to make progress. We set up a climate corps for thousands of young people who will learn how to deal with climate, just like the Peace Corps. And we're moving in directions that are going to significantly change the elements of cause of pollution. But the idea that he claims
Trump,
that he has the biggest heart up here and he's really concerned about pollution and about climate, I've not seen any indication of that. And by the way, with regard to prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35, which I was calling for, one, voluntarily. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
And by the way,
So every day, millions of Americans struggle just to make ends meet. For many older Americans, Social
China's
Security
the
provides
biggest
a
leader
critical
in
lifeline.
pollution in
President
the
Biden,
world,
if
I
nothing
believe.
is done to Social Security, seniors will see their benefits cut in just over 10 years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solvent?
Yes, make the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share.
Oh, here we go.
Right now, everybody making under $170,000 pays 6% of their income, of their paycheck, every single time they get a paycheck from the time of the first one they get when they're 18 years old. The idea that they're going to, I'm proposing that everybody, the millionaires pay 1%. 1%. So no one I would not raise the cost of Social Security for anybody under $400,000. After that, I began to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share by increasing from 1% beyond to be able to guarantee the program for life.
Nothing else.
So you still have 82 seconds left. Are there any other measures that you think that would be able to help keep Social Security solvent, or is that one enough?
Well, no, that one enough will keep it solvent. But the biggest thing I'll do if we defeat this man, because he wants to get rid of Social Security. He thinks there's plenty to cut in Social Security. He's wanting to cut Social Security and Medicare.
Where did he say he wanted to get rid of Social Security?
And if you look at the program put forward by the House Republican caucus that I believe supports, is in fact
he's close to shutting down.
Well.
It's
the idea that we don't need to protect our seniors is ridiculous. And by the way, the American public has greater health care coverage today than ever before. And on the ACA, as I said, you're in a circumstance where 400,000 people, 40 million people would not have insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. Only allows them to have that insurance is the fact that
they don't understand socialism means that they have no rights or anything.
And by the way, the other thing is we're in a situation where I talk about education for black communities. I've raised the amount of money for Pell Grants. Another
I can't wait till they let
anybody
Trump
making
respond if they let him, man.
$70,000 a year is going to be able to get $15,000 toward their tuition. He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
So I've dealt with politicians all my life. I've been on this side of the equation for the last 8 years. I've never seen anybody lie like this guy. He lies. I've never seen it. He can look you in the face. About so many other things, too. We mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia, Ukraine. Everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation. The losers and suckers story that he made up is a total lie on the military. It's a disgrace. But Social Security, he's destroying it because millions of people are pouring into our country, and they're putting them onto Social Security. They're putting them onto Medicare, Medicaid. They're putting them in our hospitals. They're taking the place of our citizens. What they're doing to the VA, to our veterans, is unbelievable. Our veterans are living in the street, and these people are living in luxury hotels. He doesn't know what he's doing, and it's really coming back. I've never seen such anger in our country before.
President Biden.
Well done, Trump.
The
What a
idea
good
that
answer.
veterans are not being taken care of, I told you before. And by the way, when I said suckers and losers, he acknowledged after that he fired that general. That general got fired because he's the one that acknowledged that that's what he said. He was the one standing with Trump when he said it, number one. Number two, the idea that we're going to be in a situation where all these millions and millions, the way he talks about it, illegal aliens are coming into the country and taking away our jobs.
They will.
There's a reason why we have the fastest growing economy in the world. The reason why we have the most successful economy in the world. We're doing better than any other nation in the world.
Because of
And
illegal
by the way,
immigrants?
those 15 Nobel laureates he talked about being phony, those 15 Nobel laureates, economists, they all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession. And inflation is going to increasingly go up. And by the way, worst president in history, 159 presidential scholars voted him the worst president in the history of the United States.
Oh, it's going to be more than that.
President Biden, thank you so much. Let's turn to the cost of
It's gonna be
child
more
care,
than
which
that,
many American
C-squared.
families struggle
You'll
to
have a
afford.
40
President Trump,
point
both
lead
you
after
and
this.
President Biden have tried to address this issue, but the average cost of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For many families, the cost of child care for 2 children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make child care more affordable?
Just to go back, the general got fired because he was no good. And if he said that, that's why he made it up. But we have 19 people that said I didn't say it, and they're very highly respected, much more so than him. The other thing is, he doesn't fire people. He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people at the FBI, drained the swamp. They were no good. Not easy to fire people. You'd pay a price for it, but they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put him there. I didn't put Comey there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired every military man that was involved with that the Afghanistan horror show. The most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. He didn't fire. Did you fire anybody?
Trump, don't get
Did
too
you fire
personal.
anybody that's on
Don't
the
get too
border
personal.
that's allowed us to have the
Just
worst
stick to
border
the
in the
topic.
history of the world? Did anybody get fired
Get a
for
little bit too
allowing 18
personal.
million people?
It's all
many from
good.
prisons,
bring
many
it back to the question.
from mental institutions. Did you fire anybody that allowed our country to be destroyed? Joe, our country is being destroyed as you and I sit up here and waste a lot of time on this debate. This shouldn't be a debate. He is the worst president. He just said about me because I said it. But look, he's the worst president in the history of our country. He's destroyed our country. Now all of a sudden he's trying to get a little tough on the border. He came out with a nothing deal, and it reduced it a little bit, like this much. It's insignificant.
Trump, bring
he
it back
wants
in.
open
Bring
borders.
it back in.
He wants our country to either be destroyed or he wants to pick up those people as voters. And I don't think we just can't let it happen. If he wins this election, our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance, of coming out of this rut. We probably won't have a country left anymore. That's how bad it is. He is the worst in history by far.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
We're the most admired country in the world. We're the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity.
I think we're the most
finest
laughed
military in the
at
history of the
state,
world.
country
the
right
finest in
now.
the history of the world.
Just clowning off.
No one thinks we're weak. No one wants to screw around with us. Nobody. Number one. Number two, the idea that we're talking about worst presidents. I wasn't joking. Look it up or go online. 159 or 58, don't hold me the exact number, presidential historians, they've had meetings and they voted who's the worst
becoming a little
president in
personal. They're just
American
going
history.
back and forth now.
One
It's a
from
little-
best
it's a
to
little
worst. They said he was the worst in all of
ticky-tack.
American history. That's a fact. That's not conjecture.
So
he can
the
argue the wrong, but
moderator's
that's
gonna
what
have
they
to
voted.
reel
The
this
idea
in,
that he is knowing
get back to
doing
the topic.
anything to deal with child
That's what the
care.
moderator's supposed
He
to
did
do.
very for virtually
Let's see if
nothing
they do
to
a good
child care.
job.
We should significantly increase the child care tax credit. We should significantly increase the availability of women and men or single parents to be able to go back to work. And we should encourage businesses to have
Thank you, President
child care
Biden.
facilities.
President Trump, the question was about what would you do to make child care more affordable, if you want to take your minute.
Just so you understand, we have polling, we have other things that they rate him the worst because what he's done is so bad. And they rate me, I'll show you, I will show you, and they rate me one of the best, okay? And if I'm given another 4 years, I will be the best. I think I'll be the best. Nobody's ever created an economy like us. Nobody ever cut taxes like us. He's the only one I know. He wants to raise your taxes by 4 times. He wants to raise everybody's taxes by 4 times. He wants the Trump tax cuts to expire. So everybody, including the two of you, are going to pay 4 to 5 times. Nobody ever heard of this before. All my life, I'd grow up and I'd see politicians talking about cutting taxes. When we cut taxes, as I said, we did more business. Apple and all these companies, they were bringing money back into our country.
He's
The
not
worst
really answering the
president in
question
history
right
by
now.
far, and everybody knows it.
President Biden?
Look, the fact of the matter
didn't
is
answer
that
the
he's
question
dead
at all.
wrong
So
about.
that's gonna be
He's increased the tariff. He
demerit
will increase
for
the
Trump.
taxes on middle class people. I said I'd never raise
I
the
would have
tax
liked to hear
on
what he had to
anybody
say about
making
that.
less than $400,000.
But
I
he didn't really answer the
This
question,
tariff is
so-
10% tariffs. Everything
little bit
coming into the
disappointing
country. You
on
know
that.
what the economists
He
say?
didn't do too well
That's
on
going to
that
cost the average American $2,500 a year more because they're going to have to pay the difference in food and all the things that are very important. Number two, he's in a situation where he talks about how he has not raised, he's somehow helped the middle class. Middle class have been devastated by you. Now you want a new tax cut of $5 trillion over the next 10 years, which is going to fundamentally bankrupt the country. You had the largest deficit of any president in American history.
Technically,
Number one.
I don't think
Number
both of them
two,
are answering
you
the
have
question,
not, in
really.
fact, made any contact,
I don't think
any
the child
progress with
care
China.
issue is a
We are
big
the
issue
lowest trade
for
deficit with
them.
China since 2010.
Thank you,
We were
President
tired.
Biden.
She lost
what
Thank you,
is
President
the-
Biden. Let's discuss an epidemic
Moving
impacting
forward, how
millions
they
of
attack
Americans
that.
both of
It's
you
probably
have
a
made a
question that
top
they weren't,
priority in your first term, the
well,
opioid
prepared to
crisis.
answer.
And for both of you, the number of overdose deaths in this country has gone up. Under your term, it went up. Under your term, it has gone up. Former President Trump, despite the efforts that both of you have made, more than 100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year, primarily from fentanyl and other opioids. What will you do to help
Mediated
Americans
use of,
right now
Damien.
in the throes of addiction who are
Casey.
struggling to get the treatment they need?
To finish up, we now have
They
the
want
largest
to take our
deficit
money.
in the history of our country
They
under
want
this
to
guy.
control our money
We have the largest
and our
deficit
livelihood.
with China.
So
He
tax
gets
us
paid
to
by
death.
China. He's
That's
a
what they wanna
Manchurian
do.
candidate. He gets money from China. So I think he's afraid to deal with them or something. But do you notice he never took out my tariffs because we bring in so much money with the tariffs that I imposed on China. He never took them away. He can't because it's too much money. It's tremendous. And we saved our steel industries, and there was more to come, but he hasn't done that. But he hasn't cut the tariffs because he can't, because it's too much money. But he's got the largest deficit in the history of our country, and he's got the worst situation with China. China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
So, President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
Jake, we were doing very well at addiction until the COVID came along. We had the 2.5, almost 3 years of like nobody's ever had
There you
before
go,
any
Trump.
country
Get back
in
on
every
track.
way. And then we had to get tough. And it was the drugs pouring across the border it started to increase. We got great equipment. We bought the certain dog that's the most incredible thing that you've ever seen, the way they can spot it. We did a lot, and we were getting very low numbers, very, very low numbers. Then he came along. The numbers, have you seen the numbers now? It's not only the 18 million people that I believe is even low because the gotaways, they don't even talk about gotaways. But the numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women coming across our border, the worst thing I've ever seen, at numbers that nobody's ever seen under him because the border's so bad. But the number of drugs coming across our border now is the largest we've ever had by far.
President Trump, thank you. President Biden?
Fentanyl and
Okay,
byproduct
answer.
fentanyl went down
Could
for a while. And I wanted to make sure we use the machinery that can detect fentanyl.
By shutting down
These
the
big
border
machines that roll
would
over
decrease
everything
the
that
amount of
comes across
drugs
the
coming
border.
into the country.
And it costs a lot
And
of
then we
money.
can attack
That
it
was
that
part
way.
of this deal we put
Would have
together.
been better answer
This
from Trump
bipartisan deal.
on that.
More fentanyl
Still think
machines,
it's kinda hyped up.
more be able to detect drugs,
From
more
Biden taking personal
numbers
shots.
of agents,
to
more
reel it
numbers
in.
of all
Just
the
a
people
little
at the
bit more.
border.
Reel it back in.
And when we had that deal done, he called his Republican colleagues and said, "Don't do it. It's going to hurt me politically." No, he never argued it's not a good bill. It's a really good bill. We need those machines. We need those machines. And we're coming down very hard in every country in Asia in terms of precursors for fentanyl. And Mexico is working with us to make sure they don't have the technology to be able to put it together. That's what we have to do. We need those machines.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, and again, the question is about Americans in the throes of addiction right now struggling to get the
They
treatment they
keep
need.
trying to attack Trump.
Because this does pertain to it. He ended Remain in Mexico. He ended catch and release. I made it catch and release in Mexico, not catch and release here. We had so many things that we had done, hard negotiations with Mexico, and I got it all for nothing. It's just like when you have a hostage. We always pay $6 billion for a hostage. Every time we say there's a hostage. Now we have a hostage, a Wall Street Journal reporter, I think a good guy, and he's over there because Putin is laughing at this guy, probably asking for billions of dollars for the reporter.
We traded
I will have him
Brittany
out
Griner for the
very
merchant of death.
quickly. As soon as I take office, before I take office, I said by literally as soon as I win the election, I will have that reporter out. He should have had him out a long time ago, but Putin's probably asking for billions and billions of dollars because this guy pays it every time. We had 2 cases where we paid $6 billion for 5 people. I got 58 people out, and I paid essentially nothing.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
Let's turn to concerns that voters have about each
Didn't
of you.
really answer the question.
President Biden, you would be 86
See how he does going forward
at
in his
the end
campaign.
of your second term. How do you address concerns about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
Well, first of all,
Let's see how he answers
I've
this.
spent half my career being criticized being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think that just look at the record. Look at what I've done. Look how I've turned around the horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs, more investment in America, over billions of dollars in private investment in enterprises that we are growing. By the way, we brought off a lot of people. Well, the whole idea of computer chips. We used to have 40% of the market. We invented those chips.
This man,
and
his
we lost
argument
it
is
because he was sending
he's
people
older.
to
They were
find the
asking about
cheapest
his
jobs
health
overseas
and going
and to bring
forward in
home
the
a product.
presidency. Does he
So
think he's strong enough?
I went
This
to
man
South
said, well, I'm
Korea.
older than
I
Trump.
convinced Samsung to invest billions of dollars here in the United States. And
That's his argument.
guess what? Those fabs, they call them, that to build these chips, those fabs pay over $100,000. You don't need a college degree for them. And there's billions, about $40 billion already being invested and being built right now in the United States, creating significant jobs for Americans from all over the world.
What does that do with your
President Biden,
health,
you have
sir?
40 seconds left. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would. The idea that somehow we are this failing country. I never heard a president talk like this before. We're the envy
Well,
of the world.
you never had the
Name me
worst
a
president in
single
U.S.
major
history
country
being president.
who wouldn't trade places with the United States of America for all our problems and all our opportunities. We're the most progressive country in the world in getting things done. We're the strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world who keeps our word, and everybody trusts us. All of our allies and those who he cuddles up to, from Kim Jong-un, he sends love letters to, and Putin, etc. They don't want to screw around with us.
Thank you. Former President Trump, to follow up, you would be 82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities to serve?
Answer the Trump.
Well, I
Answer
took
the
two
question,
tests,
Trump.
cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And, you know, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way, and I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced him. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one. And one of them said they've never seen anybody ace him.
Thank you. President Biden?
Very good, Trump.
You
Very
can see
good.
he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's what you're. Anyway, just take a look at what he says he is, and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. The reason I got my handicap, which when I was
don't need to
vice
have a
president,
golf driving
down to a
contest.
6.
We don't need that.
But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf with you if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie that he's a 6 handicap of all.
I was at 8 handicap.
Yeah.
8.
Never.
But I have, you know how many?
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Okay,
Let's
let's
not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to
21
turn
Let's not act like children.
There we
to
go.
a specific
Bring it back,
concern
Trump.
that voters have about you. Will you pledge tonight that once all legal challenges have been exhausted, that you will accept the results of
my
this election,
God.
regardless of who wins?
Here we go.
And you will
If
say
they
right
don't
now
cheat.
that political violence in any form is unacceptable.
Well, except that if they don't
Well,
try
I
to
shouldn't
cheat.
have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable. And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time, and also my statement that I made in the Rose Garden, you would say it's one of the strongest statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made in front of, I believe, the largest crowd I've ever spoken to, and I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a relatively small number of people that went to the Capitol, and in many cases were ushered in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said, it was her responsibility, not mine. She said that loud and clear. But the answer is, if the election is fair, free, and I want that more than anybody.
If this election
and I'll
is
tell
fair,
you something.
Exactly.
I wish he was a
That's
great
all we
president,
want.
because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't have been his political opponent, because he indicted me because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. But the only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again. We're a failing nation right now. We're a seriously failing nation. And we're a failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad.
Very good answer.
His military policies are insane. They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III, and he's driving us there. And Kim Jong-un and President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him. They don't fear him. They have nothing going with this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
Well done, Trump.
World War III.
Well done.
Let
Good
him
answer.
follow and win, and let
Way to
Putin
reel
say,
it back
do what you
in.
want, NATO.
Way to
Just do
reel it
what you
back
want.
in.
There's a thing called Article 5. An attack on one is an attack on all, and required response. The idea, I can't think of a single major leader in the world who wouldn't trade places with the job I've done and what they've done. Because we are a powerful nation. We have wonderful people. It's because of the people, not me. It's because of the American people. They're capable of anything, and they step up when they're needed. And right now, we're needed. We're needed to protect the world because our own safety is at stake. And again, if
That
we want
doesn't
to have a
make any
war,
sense.
just
We're
let
protecting
Putin
the
go
world
ahead and
because our
take
own
Kyiv,
safety is at
make sure
stake.
they move
We need to
on,
be
see
looking
what
out
happens
for
in Poland,
America
Hungary,
first.
and other places along that border. Then you have a war.
President Trump, as I come back to you for a follow-up, the question was, will you accept the results of this
We already
election,
answered the
regardless
question.
of who wins?
If it's fair.
Just to finish what he said, if I might, Russia.
We already
They took a
answered
lot
that
of land
question,
from
lady.
Bush. They took a lot of land from Obama and Biden. They took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it. He's not going to play games with me. He knew that. I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play games. He took nothing from me. But now he's going to take the whole thing from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have never started ever with me. And he's going to take Ukraine. And, you know, you asked me a question before, would you do this? He's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia, because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle until such time. They're running out of people. They're running out of soldiers. They've lost so many people. It's so sad. They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous cities with the golden domes that are 1,000 years old.
All that money we
all
sent
because
them,
of him and
Ukraine
stupid
shouldn't be
decisions.
losing.
Russia would have never attacked if I were
President Trump,
president.
the question was, will you accept the results of the election, regardless of who wins, yes or no?
Shut up,
please?
lady.
If it's a fair and legal
Exactly.
and good election,
If it's a fair
absolutely.
election.
I would have
Yes.
much rather accepted these, but the fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week, or we'll have another one of these in a week. But I will absolutely, there's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that than I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did. He's destroying our country. I would be very happy to be someplace else, in a nice location someplace. And again, no indictments, no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's
He's
driven
done,
up my numbers,
T-Square.
and
He's done,
driven them
man.
up to a very
He's
high
done.
level,
He's
because the
cooked,
people
man.
understand it.
He's cooked.
Well, let's see what your numbers are when this election is over.
Yeah,
Let's
if you
see.
don't cheat.
You're a whiner. When you
Oh,
lost
my
the first
God.
time, you
See, this is what the
continued,
left
you
does.
appealed in the
Pay
fields of
attention.
courts all across the country.
They got
Not
nothing to say.
one single
They have no
court in
rebuttal.
America
They
said
gotta
any of your
attack.
claims had any
I deal with
merit,
it all the time.
state or local. None. But you
Deal with it all the
continue to
time.
provoke
They
this
got nothing to
lie
say, so they
about
attack.
somehow there's all this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There is no evidence of that at all. And I tell you what, I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner.
Oh
The
my
idea, if
God.
you lose again, you accepting anything, you can't stand the loss. Something snapped in you when you lost the last time.
We'll be right back
Oh my
with
God.
more from the CNN presidential debate, live from Georgia.
They just gonna let Biden just go haul off on my man and don't let Trump say anything back. That's crazy. Again, thank y'all for being here. I know it's late, 10:30. Appreciate y'all being here on the channel. Like I said, like, subscribe, and share. That was the second, I guess, half of the debate. My thoughts on what I saw on the second half of Trump, not as strong as the first half. I'll admit that. A couple of questions, he didn't stick to the topic. He got a little bit more in his feelings. When Joseph Brandon Biden was attacking him, but that's their tactic. I think that's their tactic coming in. I think they knew that he wasn't going to win. Everybody knows that Biden wasn't going to win this. What they want to try to do is make Trump look crazy and deranged and go off topic and get all in his feelings and go off, because that'll make Biden look better. Right? Biden don't even know that he on stage still. I guarantee you that. So that's my thoughts on the second half. He got to reel it in a little bit, answer the questions. I think some of the questions that they popped up, I haven't really heard Trump campaign about. Haven't really heard Trump talk about daycare or anything like that. That hasn't been on his campaign trail. So maybe he talks to his people and get more information about that and get some talking points about that. Find some solutions about that. He went on the health thing a little bit. I mean, he looks way better than Biden. We all know that for sure. Took him a while to get back on track, but he did answer the question. And then when it got to the fair elections, I think they were actually picking on him. Whatever her name is, I don't know her name. She started, back to the question, will you accept a fair? Why are they even asking that stupid question? First of all, if you got to ask that question, you know that something was up with the election. Everybody knows that ain't no way this dude got 82 million votes. There's no way that Biden got 82 million votes. That's more than Obama. Come on. So Joseph Brandon Biden got more votes than Obama. Come on. We all know that's a lie. We all know that it wasn't fair. And all Trump had to do really was say, listen, if it's fair, if it's a fair election, then I'll accept the results. But it got to be fair. And that's all he had to say. I would have left it at that. That's all he had to say. I don't know how much more they got left. It is kind of painful to watch. I don't know how many more questions they have left, or what else they can ask. So we'll see whenever they come back. But not as strong of the second half as the first half, I will admit. But we'll see how they close it off, man. Maybe they give them two final statements as they close off and let this thing in. I mean, I don't really know what else they need to talk about. Hillary definitely didn't accept the election. She was crying. All her voters were crying and boo-hooing and all sorts of stuff when they found out that she took the L. She got sent to Ellsville. And they didn't accept the results then, but now they're going to ask Trump these questions. They didn't even ask Biden.
As predetermined by a coin toss, we're going to begin with you, President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
We've made significant progress from the debacle that was left by President Trump in his last term. We find ourselves in a situation where, number one, we have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience, or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair? The fact is that I said nobody even making under $400,000 had a single penny increase in their taxes, and will not. And if I'm reelected, that'll be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit, number one. He's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And he finds himself in a position where he now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America. What I did Well,
But he
for
wants to
example, he
get rid
wants
of
to
the
get
income.
away with get rid of the ability of Medicare to for the ability
Come on,
for
get
the
it out, Joe.
us to be able to
Come
negotiate
on.
drug prices with the big pharma companies. Well, guess what? We got it. We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter how much prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior all along, it's happening now, and everybody in America. He wants to get rid of that. I'm going to make sure that we have child care. We're going to significantly increase the credits people have for child care. I'm going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are
take the price
causing
down.
health problems for people across the country. We're going to continue to fight to bring down inflation and give people a break.
You caused the
Thank you,
inflation.
President Biden. President Trump, you now have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
All right.
Like so many
Finish it off,
politicians, this
Trump.
man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax. But he doesn't do anything. All he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should have never happened. He talks about all this stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place.
Here we go.
You talk about Charlottesville.
Someone was looking for
this
Palestine.
is 100 times
There it
Charlottesville,
is.
1,000 times. The whole country
Great
is
point,
exploding
Trump.
because of you.
Great point.
Because they don't
There it
respect you.
is.
And they have to respect their president. And they don't respect you throughout the world. What we did was incredible. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history. The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs. But he's putting a lot of those regulations back on. All of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen anything like. Even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space-age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get when you're terminally ill. Now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump.
Make
President
it great
Biden.
again. Good answer.
Stay with us because we have full analysis of this debate. Anderson Cooper and Aaron Burnett starts now on CNN.
All right, guys. That is it.
And there
for
you have it.
the debate. That is it, ladies and gentlemen. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. If you didn't get to talk, thank you for everybody that was commenting. Thanks for all that was participating and chatting it up. I appreciate y'all. All people that were in the room, thank you for being here as we watch this together. Remember, like, subscribe to the YouTube page. Leave your comments on there, what you thought about it. Like I said, my closing statements is this. I think Trump did very well. I think he answered most of the questions. I think he kept his composure for the most part. He didn't go off too far. He didn't look disheveled. They tried to attack him a couple of times, the moderators, but he held his own. I think he did good for the most part. If I had to give him a rank, I'll give him maybe a B plus, A minus. That's what I would give him. Thanks for joining. Thanks for being here. I don't even got to give a rank for Biden because that dude was lost once he walked in the stage. I told y'all once he said the convicted felon, he had nothing left. And it showed 100%. They had nothing left after that. So, I mean, Trump probably going to shoot up in the polls after this. Again, for those that was voting for Biden before, and I put that vote, if you actually did, I hope you learned something tonight. Who's the better of the two candidates? You can't go back. If you voted for Biden, you can't go back now. I got nothing else to say on that, because if you do, you're just a clown. That is what it is at this point. Thank y'all for being here. Again, I appreciate everybody that participated, and y'all have a good night. Stay tuned for some more episodes coming soon. Dan, thank you. Casey, thank you. C Squared, thank you. Kevin, thank you. And peace.